Okay, hello everyone. Sorry to burst your bubble, I'm not a Stefan. Um, and my topic is connecting Plunet to the world, the path to breaking barriers and achieving seamless integrations. And that's actually slightly exaggerating because that was written by ChatGTP. But first, let's take a small look at our personal lives. Every one of you has a cell phone, and we all know that we are now kind of used to smaller apps that only serve a particular purpose. We don't use these large applications anymore. Everything's always online, always updated, and always available to us. And if we don't like it, we just delete the app and install another one. That's what our personal life is. And everything is on top of that is connected. And let me just give you a short example. So let's say you're downloading a fitness app for whatever purpose. And you already have a nutritionist app on your phone. And then you go to the Plunet party tonight, and I heard there will be some really great burgers. And you enter that into your nutrition app, and then eventually you'll receive a notification from your fitness app to go running in the morning. So there you have it. Both apps are connected with one another, and they're a nutritionist and also a cheerleader. Now, this also sets an expectation for our business life. What are the reasons for adapting new technology altogether? Just a couple ones. Well, we have customer requests that customers want us to use a specific piece of software. We have the general company strategy. We have cost reductions or revenue increase expectations. And also another reason for adapting new technology is available talent. So we hire someone who knows something and they want to implement it, and then we have to. And again, with a little example, let's look at how we mature. So for like customer relationship management, initially we probably start out with something simple like Microsoft Excel, where we just enter some random data, and then eventually someone looks into Plunet and sees, hey, Plunet has a CRM function, let's use that. And then at some point you hire someone like Sophie, and she wants HubSpot. So also our market, or the business market, changes towards smaller applications that serve a single purpose. And there are some benefits, and there are also challenges with that. So those smaller apps are easy to learn, they have a low financial entry barrier, and they're easily exchangeable. And on the other hand, you're building islands of information with all these smaller apps. You run into double entries, and so you have consistency challenges. Sometimes jumping in between applications and knowing where something is at may be a challenge. And on top of that, you have more administrative work with a lot of smaller apps. And that has also led to a market shift. So the life cycles for tools that we use has become a lot shorter, and new technologies this way are adopted way faster. And integrations have become more important, and so has the supporting landscape. So it's now pretty standard that every application has an API. And when we personally at Plunet, when we are trying to find a new piece of software, then we always check, is there an API available so that we can integrate it with our existing landscape. Sorry. On top of that, we have the iPaaS applications, maybe Zapier or Workato, integration platform as a service that allows you to integrate tools with one another. And then we have low-code and no-code platforms. That's something that has evolved over the last couple of years on top, which allows you to create small applications really quickly by dragging and dropping without much knowledge of software development. And then when you have all these small applications, the next challenge is to get all the data together and produce meaningful reports. So that's where business intelligence comes into play, and people are using more and more tools like Microsoft Power BI. what ways are there to integrate software pieces? Well, apparently, you could just hire someone. Just some human that does all the entries and transfers all the information. Also, you could hire someone to do a custom full integration, so two products have an API and you ask them to do the integration. Apparently, that's still rather costly and it solves the problem. Then you could rely on providers like us, where we build an integration for you. That's an integration module, and the costs for that are usually shared amongst the customers. But there are also other ways, like the generic iPaaS applications I talked about, like Workato or Zapier, which may not be such a fit for our market and the tools we're using. And therefore, another market has emerged, which is market-specific iPaaS applications, like Be Lazy, or Blackbird, or Locale. And then there's something else that you can work with, which some of our users are doing, which are, let me call them quick and dirty integrations. They do fit the purpose, they're really fast to do, and you just work with plugins and scripts. Now, we all know Plunet is an application with loads of features. And some of those features, like, for example, the CRM functionality, they work for a certain level of maturity, but really not beyond. The CRM manager is one example. The other one would be the whole marketing tab. I mean, ideally, you would use something like MailChimp for your newsletters, etc. So, as a company, we have decided, and you've also heard that in Rosa's presentation talking about the core of the application, we want to focus on our core competencies, which is the workflow management. And then when it comes to integrations, we rather want to set us apart and say that we are integration ready. So, yeah. So, what do we offer? Well, one thing that most of you know is we have a SOAP API, which allows you to do a bunch of things, like retrieving project data for further processing, building custom CMS and DMS integrations, or building custom integrations to accounting tools or CRM systems. And yeah, and then you've heard from the Stefans that we also have the REST API that is still work in progress. Then we have a tool that is called the Application Manager. It basically allows you to create like little jobs within your workflow that call an external application or call web services. So, for example, if you have like if you use like an online OCR service like the one from Abby, you could write a little piece of code that allows you to then have a job in your workflow that turns PDF files into a Word file. Or if you have an automated QA application that you could check the quality and get the results back into Plunet as an automated job. Or even just file renaming for whatever reason. The other thing that we offer is the Event Manager. That is something that we use also with CMS systems mainly. It allows you to drop files in an FTP site or your customers or another file location, and then Plunet would pick up those automatically and turn them into a project, which could then again be connected to an automated workflow. Something else that we now offer, thanks to our partners, are the market-specific iPaaS applications like Blackbird and Be Lazy and Locale. Please feel free to join their roundtables. They basically allow you to connect Plunet to other market-relevant applications by just a couple clicks, or maybe more. And then there's something else that we now started to offer, and I think that was last year in October. In our community, we had a discussion on certain customizations. Yes, Ian. And Ian Barrow from Conversus had the time to actually do a webinar for other customers where he showed what he had done with our application. And he was using a functionality that most of us in our company weren't even aware that it existed. And we thought, well, maybe that's something that everyone could make use of. And so we took the last couple of months to bring it to the front, and we had a team develop a front end for that and make it also available to our hosted instances. And it basically is a JavaScript customization, and I will show you a couple examples later. But it's pretty much just code execution directly in a user's browser, and it's really useful for small tweaks. So you could display additional content from external sources. You can technically also change styles, but don't let our CEO know, to the Plunet colors and stuff. You can connect to REST APIs, you can have your custom buttons or trigger actions. And this is beneficial to all of us. In the community, we always see features where we already know we're probably not going to implement it because there's not a lot of customers needing that. And maybe something small. You may be saying, well, it should probably only take them a day. Well, with that particular feature, you may have the option to just build it yourself and put it into your application. And let's actually look at a couple examples. So this is the area where you can add that code, and that's JavaScript. So if you have someone who does know some JavaScript, I'm not a developer, I learned it myself, it works perfectly fine. You can enter that here, and then it will be used by Plunet automatically. So just as an example, I have a REST data source for my CRM system, whether it be HubSpot or whatnot. And based on the customer that I'm currently in, I could display information from that CRM system in the UI and the looks of Plunet. Another thing that I could do is just have something like, and those are just examples, like a little RSS feed that gives me some news on the company that I can click on, then I would jump there. Oh, okay, so. And then lastly, this one's actually pretty fun. I wanted to find out whether or not I can send a due date and make it an appointment in my Outlook calendar. So I created a little button that does that. Or if it's something rather simple, then here, that's something that we actually use in our internal system. We create little buttons additionally so that I can jump directly into your help desk tickets or into our Jira issues or Power BI or HubSpot and get to information a lot quicker than before. And those are things that you can pretty much now build yourself on the fly. I know you want to get back into the sun, so I deleted about 50 slides. Some last words on that. So first of all, this is something that we can hardly support. We don't know what code you're writing. So whenever you have something in there and there are errors with your system, then we would switch it off before, just to make our support still possible, because we wouldn't know if a challenge is arising from your code. Another thing that is important is that the code is always visible with browser inspection, so there may be some security implications with that, especially if you connect to a REST data source. But there are also people, even in this crowd here, like Henrik Kühnemann, who are happy to help with that. I think you've run into this already. And that have built solutions around that. And then in the community, we have a pretty lively part in the automation corner, where some of our other customers are happy to help, and I'm always happy to help as well. And then more ideas you will see tomorrow. That's actually rocket science. That's on you, Ian, at 11:15 during his presentation. All right, well, thank you very much.